My son Alan called me over and over more than 20 times in a single afternoon. "Mom, don't do this. Mom, please stop. Mom, can we talk?" But by then, it was too late for regret. Everything had started a week earlier, on Father's Day, when Alan gave his father-in-law a car worth $45,000 and gave me a pair of $20 flip-flops. Yes, you heard that right. Plastic flip-flops worth $20. While his father-in-law, Thomas, received the keys to a shiny black BMW, Melissa, the woman who had raised that boy since he was 5 years old, was handed a pair of blue plastic flip-flops inside a wrinkled paper bag. But let me tell you exactly how it all happened, because what I did next left everyone speechless. That Sunday morning, Alan texted me, "Mom, stop by after lunch. I have something for you." I thought it would be a family meal like always, maybe a small gesture of appreciation I had waited for all these years. How naive I was. I woke up early, as usual. At 72, sleep no longer comes deeply. I took a shower, put on my favorite white blouse, the one Alan had given me years ago when he still cared about my opinion, and sprayed a little perfume my late husband once said suited me best. On my way there, I stopped by the bakery on the corner and bought the chocolate cake my son had loved since childhood. The shop owner, Mrs. Jenkins, smiled like she always did. "For Father's Day, right, Melissa?" she asked, wondering if Alan had planned something special. "I'm sure he has," I replied warmly, never realizing that warmth was about to turn to ice. I arrived at his house with a smile, holding the cake as if it were the most precious gift in the world. The door was open, and I heard laughter from the backyard, laughter that wasn't meant for me. I followed the sound, and what I saw shattered my heart. My 35-year-old son was handing the keys to a brand-new black BMW to his father-in-law. $45,000, an amount that dragged every sacrifice back to the surface. The years I kept him in school, and the months I carried his family when he couldn't. "Happy Father's Day, Dad," Alan shouted while Thomas hugged my daughter-in-law, Emily, both of them laughing joyfully. I stood there like a stranger at my own child's celebration, watching myself treated as if I were invisible. Thomas ran his hand over the car's hood like it was solid gold. "Son, you shouldn't have spent so much on me," he said, grinning wide but with pride glowing in his eyes. Emily took photos from every angle, ready to post them online. "Best father-in-law ever," she said to the camera. My son looked proud, glowing as if he had conquered the world. "You deserve it. You've always been like a second father to me." Those words hit me like a punch to the chest. A second father. So what was I? Finally, they noticed me. "Hey, Mom, you made it," Alan said, casually, as if suddenly remembering my existence. He walked over holding a small wrinkled paper bag. "Here you go." It was light as air. I opened it slowly, trying to stay calm under everyone's gaze. Inside were blue plastic flip-flops and a folded note. The price tag still read $19.99. The note was worse. "Mom, you don't like expensive things, so I hope these last long. Happy Father's Day." "Love, Alan." The air fell silent. Everyone looked at me, waiting for my reaction. Thomas kept admiring his car. Emily stopped taking pictures, and Alan stared at me as if to say, "You should be grateful." "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice even. "They're beautiful." But holding those cheap flip-flops in my hand, I felt something inside me break, not anger, not disappointment, but the bitter realization that, in my son's eyes, I was worth $19.99. I stood there watching them gather around the BMW as if I were just a piece of decor in the yard. Thomas was already in the driver's seat, adjusting mirrors, turning on music, exclaiming, "This is amazing, son." Music filled the neighborhood. Emily sat in the passenger seat, live streaming. "Look, my husband bought my dad a BMW for Father's Day." Comments poured in. "What a wonderful son-in-law. Her dad hit the jackpot. And me?" With a pair of $20 flip-flops in hand, completely forgotten on a day that should have honored the person who raised him. If only they knew everything I had done for that boy. I closed my eyes, and memories flooded back. Alan was 5 when his mother died in an accident. After that, I raised him as my own in every way that mattered, the one constant in his life, the parent who showed up for everything. Alan always said I did both jobs after his mom died, so he'd give me something small on Father's Day too. I remembered him crying for his mom through the night, clinging to me, as if afraid to lose the last person he had. I worked myself to the bone to give Alan a life. I never had extra shifts, skipped holidays, and constant worry. I paid for the big things that shaped his future: school, a home, and the months he couldn't keep his family afloat. I covered bills that weren't mine because I believed love meant showing up quietly every time. Every birthday, every Christmas, every anniversary, I gave the most expensive gift not because I was wealthy, but because I thought it was how love was shown. I believed my son would understand. But now, I stood there watching him give a man he'd known for only 5 years a gift worth more than my yearly income. "Are you okay, Grandma?" My granddaughter Natalie's voice pulled me back. She was 16, the same age Alan had been when I bought him that mountain bike. She was the only one who noticed my silence. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just admiring your Grandpa Thomas's new car." I lied with a trembling smile. Natalie looked at me with those bright eyes she'd inherited from her grandmother. "Do you like the flip-flops?" "I love them," I said softly. She leaned closer and whispered, "Dad should have given you something better. You're the best grandma in the world." Her words pierced straight through my heart. A 16-year-old child understood what my grown son could not. The party went on. Thomas kept showing off the car. Alan basked in praise for being so generous, and Emily live-streamed like a celebrity. I sat there holding the flip-flops, wondering when I had become a stranger in my own family. I looked at the chocolate cake I'd brought untouched. It sat there whole and quiet, just like me. I cut a piece and tasted it. The bitterness on my tongue was the flavor of years spent giving without ever receiving. I looked around. Neighbors, Emily's friends, Alan's co-workers all crowded around the BMW, praising my son for being such a devoted man. Not one asked what my son had given me. Thomas came over, beaming. "Melissa, isn't your son amazing? Look at this car." His tone dripped with smugness, as if to remind me that he was worth $45,000 and I was worth 20. "It's beautiful," I replied, forcing calm. "Alan's always been like a son to me," Thomas went on. "From the day he met Emily, I've treated him like family, and now he's returned the favor." Every word from his mouth cut like a knife. Alan was never his son, but he treated him better than the woman who'd raised him his whole life. As I left, Alan gave me a half-hearted hug. "Thanks for coming, Mom. Hope you liked the flip-flops." I walked to my 15-year-old Toyota, the car that still ran only because I couldn't afford to replace it. On the way home, the flip-flops lay on the passenger seat mocking me. That night, sitting in my favorite armchair and staring at them on the table, I made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't sleep. I sat there until dawn, staring at those flip-flops as if they were proof of my worthlessness. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Thomas caressing that BMW with pride. I replayed the laughter from that day, feeling the same sting in my chest as when Alan handed me that crumpled paper bag. I stood up, went into my bedroom, and opened a shoebox I'd kept for years. Inside were receipts, invoices, every record of what I had poured into my son's life. Not because I was keeping score, but because my late husband had always told me to save paperwork for taxes. I spread them all over the bed and began to look through them one by one. The first was from when Alan was 8 swimming lessons, $200 a month for 2 years. "Mom, I want to swim like Michael Phelps," he used to say. He never became a swimmer, but I paid every penny. Next was the receipt for a computer I bought him at $12,500 back then. A fortune for me at the time. "It's for homework," he said, but it was really for games. I paid it off over 12 months. Then came the college tuition, $30,000 a year for 4 years, totaling $120,000. Attached were bank loan statements, overtime slips, and weekend shifts I never took off. The wedding invoice, $15,000 for a 6-hour event. The second loan I'm still paying off at 72. Proof of the house help, $10,000 for the down payment, $5,000 for furniture, $3,000 for the air conditioner, and $2,000 for the fence. When Alan was unemployed, I covered their $2,000 mortgage each month for 8 months, plus $500 a week for groceries, not to mention Emily's hospital bills and Natalie's martial arts classes that I couldn't bear to cancel. I did the math. Over $200,000 poured into my son's life. $200,000 I didn't have, borrowed and earned through endless shifts at the cost of my health, youth, and dreams. And in return, he gave me $20 flip-flops. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about all the nights I stayed up when he was sick, the games I cheered for from the bleachers, the parent-teacher meetings I never missed, the talks after every heartbreak. I remembered when he was 17, heartbroken, locked in his room for 3 days without eating. I sat outside the door for hours, telling him about my own first love, explaining that pain doesn't last forever. He finally opened the door and hugged me, crying. "Thanks for understanding me, Mom." I remembered his college graduation when he walked across the stage, pointed at me in the crowd and shouted, "This one's for you, Mom." I cried like a child that day, prouder than ever. I remembered the night he called from the hospital at 3 a.m., his voice trembling with emotion. "Mom, I have a daughter. She's beautiful, an angel. Come now. I want you to be the first to meet her." And now, it was as if none of that had ever existed. I asked myself, when did my son start seeing me as a burden instead of his mother? The answer was clear when he met Emily. At first, I thought it was just youth and infatuation. Emily was beautiful, smart, from a wealthy family. Her father, Thomas, had money, a big house, and connections. Gradually, Alan spent more and more time with them. "They're teaching me about business, Mom," he said. "Emily's dad has contacts that could help me in the future." The calls became rarer, the visits shorter. Every plan with me was canceled because of something at Emily's family. But whenever he needed money or got into trouble, I was still the first person he called. I had become an emotional ATM, a mother's bank with no interest, no closing hours, and no questions asked. Looking at those papers, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: pure clarity. Alan had made his choice, not by accident, not by forgetfulness, but deliberately, giving Thomas a $45,000 car and giving me $20 flip-flops. He chose to make me feel small on a day that should have honored me, and now I had to choose too. I could keep being the mother who accepted scraps of attention just to stay close to her son. I could keep pretending the flip-flops were meaningful. I could keep lending money he'd never repay, covering bills that weren't mine, letting them treat me as invisible until they needed me again. Or I could choose to reclaim my dignity. I looked at the clock. It was 5 a.m. On Monday. The banks opened at 9. I had 4 hours to decide who I would be for the rest of my life. I got up, showered, put on my nicest clothes, ate breakfast calmer than I had in weeks, and waited for the bank to open. At exactly 9 o'clock, I walked into National Bank with a folder in my hand. I told the clerk I wanted to cancel all automatic transfers. "Are you sure, ma'am? Some of these have been active for years," she asked. "Completely sure," I replied, my voice so steady it even surprised me. "The $500 I sent Alan each month just in case? Canceled. The shared credit card I'd opened for emergencies, but he used for personal spending? Canceled. The joint savings account for Natalie's future that Alan kept withdrawing from whenever he ran out of cash? Closed and transferred entirely to my name. The life insurance policy naming Alan as sole beneficiary? That afternoon, I called my insurer and filed the paperwork to redirect it to a charity fund. "Anything else, ma'am?" the clerk asked. "Yes," I said, taking out the other secondary cards I had issued to Alan over the years. "Cancel them all, right now." Every time she confirmed, "Canceled," it felt as if invisible chains were falling from my feet. When I left the bank, it was already noon. I didn't feel angry or sad, just light, a kind of freedom I hadn't known in decades. I walked slowly to my car, taking a deep breath in the morning air. I knew what I'd just done was only the beginning. Alan would soon realize it. His cards would be declined, his automatic transfers would stop, and then the show would begin. I didn't have to wait long. My phone rang. Alan. I didn't answer. He called again and again. By the 9th call, I picked up. "Mom, where are you? Why aren't you answering?" His voice sounded anxious, nothing like the man who had handed me $20 flip-flops the day before. "I'm home," I said. I asked, "What's going on, son?" He replied quickly, "Something's wrong. My credit card got declined at the grocery store. I called the bank, and they said it was canceled. Do you know anything about that?" His tone wasn't anxious anymore, it was angry, like he had a right to use my money without asking. "Yes, I canceled it this morning," I said, calmly, as if we were discussing an oil change. "What? Why would you do that? I use that card for emergencies." "What kind of emergencies, Alan? Like buying a BMW for your father-in-law?" Silence. I could hear his quick breathing on the other end. "Mom, that has nothing to do with this. I paid for that car myself." "With your money? The money you have only because you don't pay rent, insurance, or any other bills because I've covered them all? That money?" "It's not like that, Mom. You know I work hard." "Work hard? Sure, but with the support I provide. Tell me, how much of my money did you spend last month?" The silence this time lasted longer. "I don't keep track, Mom. We're family." "Yes, family. That's exactly why I thought I deserved something better than $20 flip-flops on Father's Day. It was just a gift." "You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word felt like a slap. To him, my pain was drama. My disappointment was too emotional. My feelings meant nothing. "It's not drama, Alan. It's dignity. And today, I decided to take it back." "What are you talking about?" "From now on, you'll have to live on your own money. No more transfers, no more cards, no more allowances. Let's see how you afford a BMW when you're paying all your expenses yourself." "You can't do this. I have responsibilities. I have a family. And I have responsibilities too to myself. something I forgot for 30 years. Mom, please. Can we talk about this? Come over and we'll discuss it like adults. No, Alan. I won't run every time you call. I won't fix your financial messes. I won't be your personal bank anymore. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. Parents help their children. But children also respect their parents. You chose to treat me like an ATM, so I'm choosing to treat you like an adult. I hung up. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't break. The phone rang again right away. I didn't answer. He called 20 times that afternoon. I ignored them all. At 6 p.m., I heard a car outside. Through the window, I saw Emily's Honda. Alan got out from the passenger side like a storm and marched straight to my door. Emily stayed in the car, probably live streaming this family drama for her friends. Alan banged on the door. Mom, open up. We need to talk. I opened it slowly, unhurried. He burst in, his face red with anger. What's wrong with you? Why'd you cancel everything? Why won't you answer your phone? Sit down, Alan. I pointed at the chair across from me. We'll talk like adults, just like you said. He sat, but only on the edge of the chair, ready to jump up. Go ahead. What do you want? I asked. I want you to reinstate the cards, restart the transfers, and just forget about this whole thing. And what are you offering me in return? I'm your son. You can't expect me to make deals with you. Oh, but I'm expected to give you everything without expecting anything back, right? What an interesting version of family. It's not like that, Mom. It's just, you've always been there. I thought that was normal. I didn't argue in circles. You already heard my answer, I said. This isn't about a single gift. It's about years of you treating me like your safety net. Then I reached for what I'd prepared the shoebox and set it between us. His eyes dropped to the box. Do you know what this is? No. What is it? Every bill I've paid for you over the last 30 years. Do you want to count them together? His face changed. He looked truly uneasy. Mom, we don't need to go over numbers. We're family. Right. No need to count. But you need to understand something. Yesterday, you showed me my worth in your eyes, $19.99. It was just a gift. No, it was a statement. And this is mine. Alan went silent, head down. I could see him trying to find a way to twist things around. Okay, he finally said, lowering his voice. I'm sorry about the flip-flops. I was wrong. Next time, I'll get you something better. There won't be a next time, Alan. What do you mean? I won't wait around for crumbs of attention anymore. I won't beg for respect. And I won't pay to be loved. He jumped up, furious. This is ridiculous. You're destroying our family over a gift. No, Alan. You destroyed it the moment you decided I was worth less than a stranger. I'm just accepting the truth. Thomas isn't a stranger. He's Emily's father, and I'm the one who raised you, who paid for everything you have, who never said no. So what does that make me? Someone worth a cheap pair of plastic flip-flops? Enough with the flip-flops. Exactly. Enough. Because from now on, there won't be any more gifts, cheap or expensive. Alan stood in the living room, staring at me like he didn't recognize the woman before him. His eyes fell on the box of receipts, confused. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. Mom, please. I know I was wrong, but you can't punish me like this. I have bills. I have responsibilities. And I'm 72 years old with a bank account that reflects 30 years of putting your responsibilities above my life. He sat down again, this time fully, no longer tense. I didn't know you felt this way, he said quietly. For a moment, I thought maybe he finally understood. Didn't know, Alan? Yesterday you gave me $20 flip-flops on the same day you gifted a BMW to a man you've known for 5 years. You really didn't think that would hurt me? I just thought you'd understand. I did it strategically, to keep a good relationship with Emily's family. Strategically? Humiliating your mother was a strategy? No, I just wanted to make a good impression on Thomas. He has connections that could help my career. And there it was. I was nothing but a sacrifice for my son's ambition. So you admit you traded me for personal gain? Don't say it like that. I just knew you'd always be there. I thought you'd understand. Yes, I always understood. I always endured. I never said no. I was so reliable you thought you could walk all over me to please someone else. That's not true. It is, Alan. And it happened because I allowed it for decades. He lowered his head, silent, perhaps realizing the weight of what he'd done. I couldn't tell if he felt regret or just fear of losing his benefits. What can I do to fix this? He asked softly. You can't, Alan. You can't erase 30 years of disregard. You can't erase the moment you chose to humiliate me to impress others. But I can change. I can do better. Maybe for others. But with me, it's too late. Don't say that. I'm still your son. Biologically, yes. Emotionally, I'm not so sure anymore. I saw his face fall. At least now he could feel a fraction of the pain I'd carried. Mom, please, give me a chance to make it up to you. I'll work harder, make more money, maybe get 2 jobs. For what? To buy me expensive gifts? I don't need gifts. I don't need love that has to be paid for. No, not paid love, real love. Real love doesn't humiliate the person you claim to love. Real love doesn't use someone like a cash machine. Real love never trades another person's dignity just to gain approval. Alan jumped up and paced around the living room. I could see panic growing in his eyes. Fine. You're right, Mom. You're absolutely right. I'm a terrible son, selfish and unfair. Is that what you want to hear? No, Alan, I don't need to hear anything. What I need is peace. Then how can I earn your forgiveness? You can't. Forgiveness is something I give when I choose to, not when you demand it. So what now? Am I no longer your son? Are we done? You'll always be my son, but only if you act like one. Until then, you're just a 35-year-old man who needs to learn how to live without relying on his mother. That's cruel, he said, his voice cracking. Do you know what cruelty is, Alan? Cruelty is giving a stranger a BMW and your mother a pair of plastic flip-flops. Cruelty is using your mother's money to impress others. Cruelty is calling her real pain drama. I get it. I know I was wrong. What more do you want? I want you to leave my house and not come back until you can walk through that door without needing or asking for anything just because you want to see me. And when will that be? I don't know. Maybe never. He turned toward the door, then looked back at me. What if I have a real emergency? What if I need help? Then call Thomas. Maybe that new BMW can loan you some cash. Mom, please. Go, Alan. We're done talking. He opened the door but paused before leaving. You'll regret this. You'll end up alone. I'd rather be alone than feel lonely next to my own children. The door slammed so hard the whole house shook. Through the window, I saw Alan get into Emily's car. She was yelling, waving her hands in fury. Their car pulled away, leaving perfect silence behind. I sat in my armchair and smiled, not a happy smile, but one of relief, like slipping off a pair of shoes that had been hurting all day. That night, I slept better than I had in years, though I knew this was only the beginning. Alan wouldn't give up easily, he had too much to lose. And indeed, the The next 2 weeks felt like an emotional roller coaster. He kept changing tactics to make me give in. First came the guilt. Text messages about money troubles. How worried Emily was. How Natalie was asking why Grandma was mad at them. When that didn't work, he tried nostalgia, sending old photos of him in my arms as a child, at his graduation, on his wedding day. Each one captioned, "Remember, Mom? We used to be so happy. We used to be a real family." When neither approach worked, he turned to threats. Emily called, screaming that I was a selfish old woman destroying the family, that Alan was struggling and it was all my fault. Then came the mediators, neighbors, mutual friends. Even the pastor from church called, urging me to forgive, reminding me that family was what mattered most. But I stood my ground. Every call I ignored, every message I read without replying, every attempt at manipulation I dismissed. Each one made me feel stronger. And just when I thought I'd seen every trick in the book, something unexpected happened. That Saturday afternoon, I was reading in the backyard when I heard footsteps. I thought Alan had come back, but when I looked up, I saw my granddaughter Natalie walking toward me, her eyes red and swollen, her face streaked with tears. "Grandma," she said, her voice trembling, and my heart ached instantly. I stood up and hugged her tightly. Her small body trembled in my arms. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Why are you so upset?" "Dad said you don't love me anymore, because he made you mad. He said you won't come to my birthday or my graduation anymore because you don't want to see our family." A wave of fury hit me so hard my chest tightened. Alan had used his own daughter as a weapon to manipulate me. He had dragged a 16-year-old child into his emotional pressure campaign, making her beg on his behalf. "Sit with me, Natalie," I said, leading her to the bench in the backyard. "We're going to talk like adults." She wiped her tears with her sleeve and sat down. "Natalie, have I ever treated you badly? Have I ever yelled at Avent? You? Or made you feel like I don't love you?" "Never, Grandma. You've always been so good to me." "Then do you really think that overnight I suddenly turned into someone who'd punish you for your father's mistakes?" "No, but Dad said you're really angry." "I am angry at your father, but that has nothing to do with you. You haven't done anything wrong. So, you'll come to my birthday, right?" "Of course I will. I'll come to your birthday, your graduation, and every important moment in your life you want me to be part of." Her eyes brightened. "Really? Really? But I need you to understand something, Natalie. Your dad and I are dealing with adult issues, things that have nothing to do with you. He did something that deeply hurt me, and now we're learning how to rebuild our relationship differently." "What did he do?" I hesitated. She was still young, too young to fully grasp matters of money and respect, but smart enough to deserve honesty. "Your dad treated me like I didn't matter. He made me feel like my love had no value. And I decided I deserve more than that." "Because of the flip-flops?" "Ah, so you heard about the flip-flops?" "Yeah." "The flip-flops were just a symbol, sweetheart. The real problem is that your father forgot that the people who love him also deserve respect. I told Dad he was wrong. I said he should have given you something better. And what did he say? He said I didn't understand because I'm too young. But I do understand." I know it was wrong. I looked at her, speechless at her maturity. A 16-year-old girl could see what a 35-year-old man refused to. "Natalie, I want you to know this. No matter what happens between your dad and me, you will always be my beloved granddaughter. You can always trust me. You'll always have a place in my life." "What about Dad?" "Your dad will have that place too, when he learns to appreciate it. But until then, I need some distance." "Will you two make up?" "I don't know, sweetheart. That depends on whether your dad truly understands what he did wrong and chooses to change. Not just apologize, but really change. She went quiet, thinking deeply, then asked, "Grandma, can I ask something? Why did Dad give that expensive car to Grandpa Thomas?" "Good question. What do you think?" "I think he wanted to impress him," Mom said. "Grandpa Thomas has money and a lot of connections." "You're very smart, Natalie. So that means Dad traded you for personal gain?" I froze, stunned by her insight. A 16-year-old had figured out in minutes what adults refused to face for months. "Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly what happened." "That's awful." "Yes, it is. And that's why you cut him off?" "I stopped giving him money because I realized I was being used." It's easy to be generous when you're spending someone else's money. So, now he has to learn to be generous with his own. Exactly. She was quiet for a while, processing everything. "Grandma, can I still visit you even if Dad doesn't come?" "Of course you can. I'd love for you to come more often. We can cook together, watch movies, or just talk like we're doing now." "I want that too, but Dad said if I come here, it means I'm taking your side." I sighed. Another manipulation tactic. Alan was trying to control even the relationships within my family. "Natalie, this isn't a war. You don't have to pick sides. I'm not against you or your mom. I'm just setting boundaries with your dad." "Boundaries? What does that mean?" "It means deciding how you want to be treated and not letting anyone cross that line." "Oh, like when I told Mark in class I didn't like him yelling, and if he kept yelling, I wouldn't talk to him anymore?" Exactly like that. "So your boundary with Dad is that you won't give him money until he learns respect." "That's right, that's one of my boundaries." "That makes sense, really." "You think so?" "Yeah. If I were rich and someone used my money to impress others while treating me badly, I'd cut them off too." I smiled. The wisdom of youth still amazed me. Natalie understood self-respect, something many adults never learn. "Grandma," she said softly, "I think Dad's scared." "Scared of what?" I asked. She looked up, her voice calm but certain. "Scared of having to actually live on his own money? Scared Mom will find out he doesn't make as much as everyone thinks. Scared Mom's family will realize he's not as successful as he pretends to be." "Why do you think that?" "Because last night I heard him on the phone asking someone about a loan. He sounded really desperate. Then Mom asked why he didn't just ask Grandpa Thomas for help, and he yelled that Grandpa Thomas isn't his personal bank." I let out a bitter laugh. The irony wasn't lost on me. Alan was finally learning what it felt like to be treated like a living bank, but in the hardest possible way. "Natalie, does your dad know you came to talk to me?" "No, I told him I was going to my friend Kayla's house. I was afraid he'd forbid me from coming." "Would he really do that?" "He's probably really mad at you, Grandma. He says you're the stubborn one." "And what do you think?" "I think Dad made a big mistake. And now he doesn't know how to fix it without admitting he was wrong." I looked at my granddaughter with deep affection. "You're too smart for your age. Do you know that? Mom says it's because I spend too much time with adults instead of acting like a normal teenager. Your mom's right, but that's not a bad thing. It helps you see truths that many adults can't face." Natalie stayed until evening. We cooked a simple dinner, watched one of her favorite old movies, and talked about her college plans. It was the most natural, peaceful conversation I'd had in weeks. When it was time for her to go, she hugged me tightly. "Grandma, thank you for explaining everything. I understand so much better now. Thank you for coming, sweetheart. And remember, you can visit any time you want. Even if your dad gets angry, he has no right to stop you. You're old enough to decide who you want in your life." She walked toward the bus stop, and I stood in the doorway watching her go. One conversation with my granddaughter had brought me more clarity than I'd felt in years. Natalie's clear perspective made me realize I wasn't crazy, that my feelings were valid, that my boundaries were fair. But she also gave me an important piece of information. Alan was in financial trouble, and that desperation would make him unpredictable. I didn't have to wait long to see that. Monday morning, as I sat drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Emily dressed as if she were heading to an important business meeting. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Emily, what can I do for you?" "We need to talk, ma'am. This has gone too far." "What do you want to talk about?" "About this tantrum you're throwing, about how you're making my whole family miserable, about how your pride is hurting innocent people." Her tone was condescending, like she was scolding a stubborn child. A tantrum? Pride? Or would you prefer to call it self-respect? Call it whatever you want, but the point is, you need to stop this now, or you'll lose your family forever. Are you threatening me, Emily? I'm not threatening you. I'm stating facts. Alan is considering moving away. He says he can't live near someone who manipulates him emotionally. Emotional manipulation? I laughed. Is that what you call facing the consequences of his actions? Are you saying I use money to control my son? I stared straight at her. Emily, do you have any idea how many years Alan spent my money without asking? How many times he used my money to support your household while giving me nothing but indifference in return? That's different, she said quickly. Parents helping their children is natural. Parents help children who respect them. They don't bankroll grown adults who treat them like ATMs. Alan respects you. Really? Giving me cheap flip-flops while buying your father a BMW, is that respect? Oh, come on, are you still not over that? You're going to destroy this family over a gift? I'm not destroying anything, Emily. I'm just refusing to fund my own humiliation. You're selfish. And you're a woman who's gotten too used to living off other people's money. Maybe it's time you start living on what you and your husband actually earn. Her face flushed red with anger. You know what? You're right. I got used to help because Alan said that's how you show love. He told me you like feeling generous, that it makes you feel needed. He said that? Yes. Alan told me if we didn't accept your help, you'd feel rejected, that you needed to feel necessary. I stood still. So Alan had lied even to his wife, just to justify using my money. And you believed that? Why wouldn't I? He's my husband, and it sounded reasonable. A lot of older parents like feeling useful by helping their kids. Emily, did it ever occur to you to ask me directly if that was true? Why would I? Alan knows his mother better than anyone. Apparently, he doesn't know me at all. She went quiet for a moment, her expression shifting as realization dawned. Maybe she saw that her husband had been lying. So you never really wanted to help us? I wanted to at first when I thought it was temporary, when I believed Alan would eventually become independent. But he turned it into a lifestyle, an expectation. But you never said anything. How could I? Every time I gave him money, he acted so grateful, said it meant the world, promised to pay me back when he could. I thought he meant it. And he didn't? No, Emily. He was grateful for the money, not for me. You can't say that. Alan loves you. He loves what I do for him, not me. If he truly loved me, he wouldn't have humiliated me in public with a cheap gift while buying your father a luxury car. Maybe he just misjudged the situation. A misjudgment is forgetting a card. Publicly humiliating your mother on her day, that's a conscious decision. Emily fell silent for a long moment, then finally asked, "Melissa, is this really just about the flip-flops, or is there more?" For the first time, she asked the right question. It was never just the flip-flops, Emily. It was years of being taken for granted. Full of what? Of being treated like a guest in my own child's life. Of only being called when they needed money. Of 5-minute visits while they spent hours with your family. Of being left out of important decisions about my granddaughter. No one ever asked how I felt. They just assumed I'd always be there no matter how they treated me. So what now? You're just not part of the family anymore? I'll be part of the lives of those who truly value me. Natalie will always be my granddaughter. And you, Emily, can still be my daughter-in-law if you learn to see me as a person, not a resource. And Alan, when can he be your son again? When he learns how to act like one. This isn't about forgiveness, Emily, it's about respect. Alan has to prove he sees me as his mother, not his financier. And how does he do that? That's something he'll have to figure out himself. I'm not handing out instructions on how to love me. This all sounds so complicated. No, it's very simple. Either respect or don't. Either value or exploit. Either be my son or be a stranger. You can't pick which one whenever it suits you. Emily sat quietly for a moment before speaking softly. My dad would never cut me off, no matter what I did. That's true, I said. But your father also didn't work for 30 years to support his grown child's lifestyle and then receive a pair of $20 flip-flops as a thank you. I looked straight into her eyes. Now tell me honestly, do you really think Alan was right to give me those flip-flops and give your father a BMW? She stayed silent for a long time before whispering, "No, that wasn't right." "And do you think Alan knows that?" "I think he does, but he can't admit it. Because admitting it means facing how wrong he's been for so long." "Exactly. And until he admits it, nothing will ever change. If one day he truly realizes it and comes to apologize, that will be the first step, but words alone aren't enough. Real change has to show in his actions." "What kind of actions?" "Actions that prove he sees me as his mother, not his banker." Emily left looking thoughtful. I sat there for a long time after she was gone. The next few days were quiet, no calls, no messages, no one at the door. A strange silence hung over everything like a temporary truce where everyone was quietly reflecting. I used that stillness to do something I had forgotten for years. Think about myself. I realized that for too long, I had lived only as Alan's mother, Natalie's grandmother, the provider of the family, and had completely forgotten Melissa, the woman with her own likes, wants, and sources of happiness. One morning, I woke up not wondering whether Alan needed money or if some bill might have gone unpaid. I went to the kitchen and cooked myself a real breakfast just for me. That morning, I made scrambled eggs with mushrooms, crispy bacon, buttered toast, and a cup of Colombian coffee I'd been saving for special occasions. I ate slowly, savoring every bite while reading the newspaper from start to finish without rushing. It felt luxurious, something I hadn't allowed myself in decades. After breakfast, I went for a walk in the nearby park. I had driven past it thousands of times, but had never stopped to actually go in. The park was more beautiful than I'd imagined, benches shaded by tall trees, a small pond with ducks gliding across it, clean walking paths where older folks exercised. I sat on one of the benches and watched life around me. An elderly couple played chess at a concrete table. A woman about my age scattered breadcrumbs for the ducks. A small group practiced Tai Chi on the grass. "First time here?" A woman's voice called from behind me. I turned to see a woman around 65, with neatly combed silver hair and a kind face. Yes, I smiled. First time I've actually stopped to enjoy it. It's a wonderful place to think, she said. I've been coming every morning since I retired. What did you do before retiring? I was a nurse 35 years at the General Hospital. What about you? I worked in a factory for 40 years. That must have been tough. It was, but I liked it. It gave me purpose. And what gives you purpose now? That simple question hit me harder than I expected. What gave me purpose now? For decades, my purpose had been Alan, working for him, saving for him, fixing his problems, making his life easier. I'm learning to find that again, I admitted. Ah, so you're in a transition, she said kindly. I was the same after I retired. Suddenly, I wasn't Nurse Martha anymore, just Martha. It was scary at first. How did you get through it? I started doing things just for me. The things I'd put off for years. I learned to paint, traveled alone, joined a book club. Didn't you feel selfish? At first, yes. But then I realized living your entire life for others isn't noble, it's self-destructive. You can't give what you no longer have. Her words sank deep inside me. For so many years, I had drained myself dry to fill everyone else's lives. Can I ask you something personal? Martha said. Of course. Have you lost someone recently? Is that why you're reflecting like this? You could say that. I lost the illusion that I was valued by the people I loved most. Ah, that's the hardest kind of loss, when you realize you've given everything to those who only know how to take. Exactly. Do you still have family? I have one grown son and a granddaughter. My son and I, let's say we don't see eye to eye on respect, but my granddaughter, she's an angel, the only one who really sees me as a person. Grandkids are often wiser than their parents, Martha smiled. They're not trapped by the emotions between parent and child. That's true. Let me give you one piece of advice, she continued. Don't spend your life waiting for others to change. Live in a way that makes you happy whether they change or not. If they do and add to your happiness, wonderful. If they don't, you'll still be happy. That sounds simple. It is simple, but not easy. Easy because the formula's clear, hard because it takes courage to set boundaries and hold them. I just learned how to set boundaries. And how does it feel? Liberating and terrifying. Good. That means you're doing something meaningful. We talked for more than an hour. Martha told me about her travels, about taking up watercolor painting at 60, about how her book club changed her outlook on life. You should come to my book club next Wednesday, she suggested. We're reading something about second dollars. Chances. I'm not sure I'm the social club type. No one is at first. But it's a great way to meet people who are in the same chapter of life. You really think I should come? I think you should do everything that sparks your curiosity. At our age, curiosity is a rare gift. That afternoon, I left the park with Martha's phone number and an invitation to her book club, but more importantly, I left with a new perspective on life. For weeks, I had focused on what Alan had done wrong, on the pain and unfairness I'd endured. Those feelings were real, but they kept me trapped in the past. Martha was right. I couldn't control whether Alan changed, but I could control how I lived. That night, instead of sitting around brooding, I pulled out a few old books I'd bought but never read: history, travel, philosophy, the ones I'd neglected because I was always busy handling Alan's crises. I picked one about an expedition to Antarctica and lost myself in it. Those explorers had found purpose not in reaching the destination, but in the journey itself. When the phone rang at 9 p.m., I didn't even look up. Of course it was Alan, but I no longer felt obligated to answer. The next morning, I went to the local bookstore, bought 3 more books, and signed up for a computer class for seniors at the library. If I was going to rediscover myself, I needed to learn to keep up with the world. That week flew by. Every day I discovered something new about myself, that I enjoyed cooking when it wasn't an obligation, just for fun, that I had opinions about art when visiting the museum, that I loved thoughtful conversations at Martha's book club. The first meeting was wonderful. 12 people, men and women between 55 and 75, all of whom had gone through major life shifts, retirement, divorce, loss, or empty nests. We talked about the book, but the conversation expanded. Redefining ourselves after decades of living for others, the freedom both scary and freeing that comes with realizing you can finally live for yourself. It's funny, a man named Robert said, we spend the first half of our lives building our identity around other people's needs, and the second half trying to figure out who we really are. The problem, a woman named Karen added, is that sometimes the people from our first half don't know how to handle this new version of us. So, what do they do when that happens? I asked. Depends, Karen replied. If they truly love us, they adapt. If they only loved what we did for them, they leave. How can you tell the difference? By their reaction when you set boundaries, Martha said. Those who love you will respect them. Those who use you will get angry. Her words echoed in my mind for days. Alan had gotten angry when I set mine. He hadn't respected my decision, hadn't reflected or understood. He'd just been furious about losing access to my money. 6 weeks had passed since Father's Day until that Saturday morning when I got a call I never expected. I was in the kitchen making the special pancakes I'd learned in my cooking class when the phone rang. Grandma, it was Natalie, but her voice sounded strange, full of worry. What is it, sweetheart? Dad's in the hospital. He collapsed last night. Mom said he's been under too much stress from work and money, and he fainted. He's awake now, but the doctor says he needs rest. Which hospital? Central Hospital. Grandma, can you come? He asked for you. My first instinct was to rush there. No matter what, he was still my son. But I took a deep breath and reminded myself of everything I'd learned these past weeks. I'll come, Natalie, but I'm coming for you and your mom. Do you understand? Yes, Grandma, I understand. When I arrived, Emily was in the waiting room, her eyes red. She stood up, and for a moment I braced for another argument, but instead, she hugged me. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. How is he? Physically stable, but emotionally exhausted. The doctor says it's from prolonged stress. I see. He's asleep, but you can go in. I walked into the room. Alan lay there, connected to monitors, fast asleep. He looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, almost boyish. In that moment, I didn't see the 35-year-old man who'd given me cheap flip-flops. I saw the little boy who once needed his mother. But then I remembered Martha's words. Those who truly love you will respect your boundaries. Those who only use you will resent them. I sat in the chair beside his bed but didn't hold his hand. I wouldn't pretend everything was fine just because he was in a hospital. After nearly an hour, Alan opened his eyes. When he saw me, tears welled up. Mom, he whispered. Hi, Alan. How are you feeling? Tired. Really tired, he said softly. The doctor says you've been under a lot of stress. Yeah, a lot. He fell silent for a while, staring at the ceiling. Mom, can you forgive me? Why do you want me to forgive you, Alan? For everything, for the flip-flops, for not valuing you, for using your money, for treating you badly. Do you really understand why that was wrong? Or are you just saying it because you're in a hospital bed? I understand now. Actually, I think I always did, I just didn't want to admit it. Why not? Because admitting it means accepting that I've been a bad son, and I didn't want to be that person. Alan, you're not a bad son. You're a son who made mistakes, big ones. Yeah, big mistakes. There's still a way to fix them. It depends on what you're willing to do. Whatever it takes. Saying whatever it takes isn't an answer, Alan. It's what people say when they're desperate. I need specifics. He thought for a long moment. I want to start by returning the BMW. What? The car I gave to Mr. Thomas. I want to return it to the dealership and use the money to start paying you back. Alan, where did the money for that BMW come from? From my savings, because you covered most of our expenses. So it wasn't really your money. No, it was money I was able to save because you paid for everything. And how do you feel admitting that? Ashamed. Really ashamed. Good. Shame is the first step toward change. So will you let me return the car? No, Alan. You're still missing the point. The issue isn't money, it's respect. Then what do you want me to do? I want you to learn to truly live on your own money, to value relationships more than appearances, to learn how to be a son before trying to be a husband. How do I do that? That's something you'll have to figure out yourself. I can't give you a manual. In the meantime, I'll keep living my life. If you want to be part of it, you'll have to prove you value me as a person, not as your provider. So, you're never going to help me again? It means help has to be earned through respect and maintained through gratitude. It's not an automatic right. I understand. Do you really understand? Or do you just think you do? I think I'm beginning to, but I'll probably need time to fully grasp it. That's the first step. Admitting you don't completely understand. We talked for another hour. It wasn't some magical reconciliation that fixed everything, but it was the first real conversation we'd had in years. Alan admitted to specific mistakes, showed genuine remorse, and most importantly, didn't ask for things to go back to how they were. When I left the hospital that afternoon, I didn't know if Alan had truly changed or if he was just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. But I felt a small flicker of hope. 6 months later, I can honestly say Alan has changed imperfectly, but genuinely, he found a second job to become financially independent. He started therapy to understand his own behavior. He returned the BMW and used the money to pay off his own debts. More importantly, he began visiting me without asking for anything. Every Sunday morning, we sit together over coffee and talk about life, goals, fears, everything except money. Natalie visits more often too. She cooks with me, teaches me about technology, and tells me about her college plans. Our bond is stronger than ever. As for me, I'm still on my journey of rediscovery. I still go to the book club. I've started traveling alone, learned to use the computer, and even begun writing my memoir. I've forgiven Alan, not completely, but I've started. Forgiveness isn't an event, it's a process. And I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean letting things go back to how they were. It means releasing resentment while keeping the lesson. The relationship between Alan and me will never be what it once was, and that's okay. Before, it was an unbalanced bond where I gave everything, and he only took. Now, we both contribute, both appreciate each other, and both understand that respect must flow both ways. Every morning, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman completely different from the one I was a year ago, a woman who's learned that it's never too late to demand respect, that self-love is not selfish, that sometimes you have to lose a relationship to save it. And you, what about you? If it were you, would you have the courage to set boundaries with the people you love to protect your own peace of mind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. And if you'd like to keep walking with me through these journeys of forgiveness, of family, and of love, stay with me, because every week we'll open a new chapter together, gentle yet full of meaning.